Good morning, good evening, and good night, my terrible listeners. You're tuned in to Terrible Sex with Naseem. I'm producer Dan, and each week I have the honor of bringing you registered nurse, aspiring sex educator, polyamory enthusiast, and true woman of the people, Naseem. She tells us stories, answers our questions, and helps us feel more comfortable around our world's infinite variety of sexuality. Send your questions, your comments, and especially voice memos to Naseem. This show is best when you get involved. Contact info is on her website at terriblesexwithnaseem.com. Hey, Naseem.
Hey, Dan.
How's it going?
It's going great. I'm in a very playful mood today.
Well, that sounds delightful. I'm glad to hear it. What makes you so playful?
So it's kind of funny. Jar, my lovely husband, who you have met.
Met him 2 weeks ago, here on the pod.
Right here on the pod. He has a new lady friend.
Ooh, my goodness.
And that's going well. And
good.
She is also married, also polyamorous.
Nice.
And she and I have been texting all afternoon.
Oh, man. Were you sending dick pics?
No, we were talking about just life stuff, and she's really funny, and she and I get along really well. And apparently he was texting with her husband as she was texting with me. So we have a very cool kitchen table, as we call it in the poly world, a very kitchen table situation dynamic happening right now. And it's so far, it's still young, but it's still very fun right now. And I'm really excited for him. And it's the first time that Jar has been seeing somebody that I don't have that initial feeling of insecurity and jealousy, which sometimes happens with me.
Right.
I unfortunately am still working through my own insecurities and oftentimes find myself playing the comparison game, which, does happen.
Sure.
But this is the first time I haven't felt that way. And I've just been purely excited for him and for what this new dynamic may unfold into. We call that, there's a word that's used in the poly community. It's called compersion.
Yeah, compersion. Tell me what that means.
Compersion is the joy that you have for seeing your partner find fulfillment and happiness elsewhere.
Nice. You feeling some compersion?
I'm feeling some compersion, and I'm super happy for him. I'm super excited. And just feeling loosey-goosey, fancy-free. Meanwhile, my current partner here in Chicago, he's on a date right now. So, which, I don't know how that's going to end up. He was kind of feeling kind of apathetic about it, but who knows? I told him, enjoy yourself, have a good time. Maybe this is the one, but who knows? So, we'll see. I'm just sort of riding on everybody else's coattails right now.
That's a wonderful place to ride. I hope you get a good look at everybody's ass.
I wish. I need to see some more asses in my life. That's not an invitation to send me pictures of your ass, listeners.
No.
But yeah, how are you doing, Dan?
Man, I'm pretty good. I've had a pretty good week. Work is going well. I have done no projects on my house. And I've been talking to another guy about maybe doing another podcast, and I'll update you when I have a little more info on that. But
really,
there's been some positive, conversation around that, and we have another meeting tomorrow, and I'm pretty excited about that. So we'll see how it goes.
You heard it here first, folks. We are expanding the Terrible Podcast Network. Potentially. And if you've got a good idea for a show, let me know. Yes. Let us know. No, that's really exciting stuff. Really
it is.
Stoked.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And all of that has to do with, my family's future travel plans too. So,
right.
A lot of things may be coming together, but it's been fun just thinking about possibilities and, doing some groundwork to see what else is possible. So I'll update you when I have actual things to update you about. Just know I'm feeling positive and This is the way my brain likes to work.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm feeling compersion for everybody. It's a big compersion episode.
Compersion!
We're all in good places. Love to hear it. So this week, it's not so much terrible sex, but it was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Dan, I'm going to tell you and the listeners about that time that I fucked my boss.
Please do. I can't wait to hear it.
Okay. And it wasn't just like a single fucking of my boss. It was like a months long situationship. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is 2010, the end of 2010 into 2011. Wait, is that right? Yeah, we're going to go with that. So I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time. And I was just getting out of a really messy relationship.
And clearly crawling right back into a new one.
That's kind of how I operate. That's my modus operandi. At least it was in my early 20s. So I was getting out of this really messy relationship.
This is pre-marriage, right? Yeah.
Pre-marriage. I hadn't even met Jar yet. I hadn't really dated a lot, but it's true. I was going from one crappy situation to another, but I wasn't really dating. I wasn't the type of person who Tinder wasn't a thing back then. I wasn't like going on multiple dates with multiple people and seeing what worked. It was like somebody fell into my lap and I just ran with it.
Yeah.
That's kind of how all my relationships were back then. So anyway, I had just gotten out of this really fucked up relationship, which I can tell another story about at another time. And I was working as an in-home health aide for adults with developmental disabilities.
Okay.
And I did overnight shift at this one woman's house, and she had like a severe emotional and cognitive delay. And long story short, because I don't want to give too much about that situation up, but I was attacked in the middle of the night.
Okay.
And so I had to go to the ER. And the next day I so I had just broken up. I had this attack. I was in the ER. I had broken up with the guy I was seeing like that same day practically. It was like all happening on the same weekend. So I'm like recovering from my wounds, and my boss calls me. And he's like, "Hey, I have another client. We're going on this road trip together. Do you want to tag along?" And I'm like, "Okay, that sounds fine. I kind of just want to sit in my hole and recover, but maybe getting out of the house will be good for me. I don't know." So I join him on what I presume to be a work trip. And we go with our client. And now this wasn't my client. This was like someone he was supervising. But,
Okay.
it was a very like low key kind of agency. I mean, we followed all like the state regulatory laws and everything like that. But we would often like take care of other clients if like somebody wasn't available and things like that. So I tag along, and I knew who this client was. And I think we like went to the beach or something, had like a road trip, got lunch, whatever. And it was a long day. We get back, drop the client off, and my boss is like, "Do you want to get dinner?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure, why not?" And I'm still just out of it. And heartbroken and in a lot of pain, both emotionally and physically. And then he offers to drive me home after we get some food. And we start
How was dinner?
fine, like kind of awkward because I felt like he's my boss. But I had always kind of gotten this impression from previous interactions that maybe there was a level of attraction. Like, I wasn't necessarily attracted to him, but I got the impression that like he was interested in me in some way.
Okay.
And I think part of that was cultural too, because he was an immigrant, and a Muslim, and I think that there was some level of, um, oh well, here's a second gen uh, a Muslim by proxy girl.
Right. Right.
Maybe like some connection can be made here. I think that I represented some level of comfort to him just by the nature of my existence, um, in a predominantly like white area. So, but like, so dinner was fine. I think there was some level of awkwardness because like I'm having dinner with my boss and I'm like, what is this? But he takes me home and nothing happened like physically that night, but we kept hanging out and then and like outside of work, and then eventually
Where were you guys at age-wise?
he was 26 years older than me.
Okay.
So it's funny you say that because the really messy relationship that I was in prior to this was also with a man 26 years older than me.
And he was single at the time?
He was single,
That
yes.
your boss that we're talking about now.
Yeah, my boss was single. He was divorced, but he was single at the time that I knew him. And we eventually I started having dinner at his house. Like I would go to his house, and then one night we're having dinner and I honestly couldn't tell you the details of that night or what happened, but we ended up having sex that night. And I remember feeling very conflicted because he's my boss.
Right.
um, I'm also like incredibly lonely, and he's a nice guy, and he's very polite, and he's like older, and he's like taking care of me and like doing all of the things that like my previous relationship had like failed at miserably. And I felt safe with him, and he was very generous. And was there a power dynamic? Yes, because I'm his subordinate at work, right?
Right.
And also, like, no one can know about this, right? Not just professionally, but also personally. He was an elder, like a person of high standing at his mosque. So he had certain like religious and societal expectations to uphold, and I could not be part of that. So I was like the secret girlfriend. And that's what ended up happening. I ended up being like his girlfriend
Right.
in a way. Like I would go to his house all the time for dinner, and we would like go on these dates and stuff. But like if anybody that he knew, like from the mosque, like was around, we just had to be very like platonic. Like, oh, this is like my friend, right? So um there was one time he invited me over with some of his friends for tea, but it was very awkward because I couldn't show any kind of emotion or like no affection towards him whatsoever. I was just like this platonic friend. It was very bizarre.
Yeah,
um
that sounds real weird.
it was very weird, and especially because like
Sounds like real junior high.
it was incredibly junior high. But he was also like really, I don't want to say he was stunted because I don't think that's fair to him. I think that he just had a different idea of what a relationship was based off of like maybe his cultural background.
Sure.
Um, and he also had like very strange beliefs about people. Like he didn't trust women who owned dogs.
Me neither. They're fucking crazy.
Like he firmly believed that women who owned dogs did so for sexual gratification. Yeah, so I had a lot of like weird ideas about things. And It was incredibly awkward at times because, like, he also, because he was such a staunch Muslim, I mean, I say staunch, even though he was having sex with someone, like, outside of marriage and
Right.
was lying and all these other things.
I
But
mean, he's cherry picking.
he's cherry picking. Like, he didn't drink alcohol, but then he also, like, fucked his employee. But
I don't think it specifically says you can't do that in the Quran. I'm no expert.
I'm also not an expert, but, maybe we can get someone on the pod who knows more than I do. But he was, like, a very staunch, like, he prayed 5 times a day. We had to plan around that. So, like, if we were there was at least there was more than one occasion where we were in bed together, and then he had to stop what we were doing, do his absolutions and do his prayer, and then come back to bed. And I'm just like, this is weird. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I get it, I suppose, and I'm not saying, like, Islam is weird. I'm not trying to, like, hate on anybody's religion. That's not what I'm doing here. But I think from the perspective of someone who's not in that tradition, and it's like clearly, it's like being so pious, but also so not at the same time.
Yeah,
That really
real
was the
real dogmatic in a way that, like, you know, I don't know. If we made a list of the things that God cared about, I don't know if that would be at the top.
Yeah, I don't know, but it just was a bit of a mind fuck.
Yeah.
Also, I got a raise during this time.
Well, that's well deserved.
But he was, and I, like, at the time I had, like, put on Facebook or something about, "Oh, hey, I got, like, a raise at work," and, like, I was really excited about it, and he yelled at me because it said that if I posted it online, it was showing that he was giving favoritism, and I'm like, "How? No one knows that we're even friends, like, what are you talking about?"
Right.
So, it was, um it was awkward, but my late father, uh, loved him
Oh, love
because
this guy?
loved this guy
He was
because
buddies with your dad?
he wasn't buddies with my dad, but he would, like, send homemades, like, soaps and lotions and stuff to my dad. Because he would, like, that was, like, a side business, was, like, he would, like, make homemade lotion, and so I would send it he would, like, send it to my dad, and my dad, like, would use it, and he would, like, "Oh, tell so and so that I said hi and that he's great," and blah, blah, blah. And then when I moved back to Michigan, now mind you, I had tried ending things with this dude several, several times, because I knew it was, like, not good. I knew it was not good for me, it was not good for him, it was just, like, a bad situation all the way around.
Okay.
So, and every time I would try to end things, like, it never it never came to fruition. Like, he would always partly because I was, like, working for him, right? And then I did eventually get a different boss, I will say that. Like, about 2/3 of the way through our relationship, I got transferred, or he got transferred to, like, another team
Right.
at the organization, so I ended up getting a different boss. So then it wasn't so bad, or so, uh, dangerous, I suppose. But, um, but I kept, like, trying to end things because I wasn't happy, and I'm like, "This doesn't make sense," and also he kept trying to, like, get me to marry him. It was just all of these things happening, and I wasn't here for it. But he just, like, wouldn't take no for an answer. Um, and it's not like I could block him because I still worked with the guy.
Right.
Um, and it took me moving back to Michigan, moving across the country, for him to finally get the picture that, yeah, no, I'm actually done. So, um So I don't recommend getting into relationship, not just with someone you work with, but definitely not someone who is your superior, because it makes things real awkward and it makes things uncomfortable. And I don't think I was being taken advantage of. That's always like the conversation that people have, like, oh, it's an abuse of power because they can hold your job over your head if you don't provide, um like uh I forgot what the terminology is in HR, but um it's it's like a thing, like sexual harassment
Sure.
or whatever. And I never felt that way because I was a willing participant to it for the most part, up until I tried breaking up with him. But uh I don't recommend it. If you can avoid it, do. If you actually have feelings for this person, I would say try to get transferred or something. Like, if you think that it's an actual relationship potential, get moved to a different department or something. don't I don't know. I don't really have a ton of advice other than don't do it. Um,
But look how much you learned.
I I could say
Older
that
and
about
wiser.
I could say that about a lot of things, and the
Right?
mistakes that I've made in my life, particularly when it
Now,
comes to relationships. It's actually really funny because I told my roommate at the time about what was going on, and she's like, "Naseem, this is a terrible idea. Like, what are you doing?" And I remember we had this like message board, like a chalkboard message board in the kitchen, and I remember writing on it, "Consequences be damned."
well,
And I left it up there, and I just near the end of the relationship, I was, like, bitching to her about it, and she just pointed to the board. She's like, "I told you." Like, "Yeah, I know. I know." Um, but, you know, as my husband says, "Don't shit where you eat and don't fuck where you work." So, that's the lesson to be had.
well, goddamn.
Yeah.
I I don't know. Here, let me ask you this. If
Please
you
ask
could
me questions.
Okay, if you could go back in time, would you just not do it?
Ooh. My gut instinct is to say, "Yeah, no, I wouldn't have done it." But if I didn't do it, I wouldn't, A, have a story to tell, and B, I think I did learn a lot, uh,
Right.
from
You
that
just would have
experience.
fucked some other boss of yours.
Right. And it was always, like, missionary in the dark. He refused to turn the lights on. Um, he,
I want
also
I want him on the show so bad.
there's no chance in hell. Um, and he also,
Listen,
uh
home health manager, if you're listening,
he doesn't work there anymore.
well, he probably manages some other home health business. You
Maybe, I
reach
doubt
out to me, sir.
Okay.
I
Um,
I'm the one that checks the email first.
that's true. Um, yeah, so it was always missionary in the dark. There was no oral sex of any kind.
What?
Yeah, no.
Did you try?
Yeah,
Did he say that's not how God wants it done?
more or less. So,
Whoa.
yeah, very much, uh, it was very
You and I
vanilla.
have very different opinions of what God wants for us.
I think that most of us have different opinions than about what God wants for us. If there is a God, think it's Uh, I don't think it's as dogmatic as that.
Right.
Um, so
If there is a God, his top priorities are definitely pray at exactly the right time every day, pointing the exact right direction, and no blowjobs.
listen, I am not here to dispel anyone's faith.
No, I'm agreeing.
That's not what this
I'm
is
on board
about. On board on board with what?
with that guy's religion.
It was just, like, so not what I wanted or was looking for, but I was so, I think, desperate for attention and desperate for some kind of connection, even if it wasn't exactly what I wanted or was looking for, it was something, and I think we've
Listen,
all been there.
I am pro adventure. I think more experiences are better than less experiences. I think if you don't feel like you were in a position that you were being taken advantage of and you were a willing adult consenting to the situation at the time, then I'm all for it. If you want to try something, try it. I regret all the stuff I didn't try. I almost don't regret any of the awesome stuff and super weird stuff and really dumb stuff that I did.
Right? And that's kind of where I am, people, so I don't think of myself as having such, like, a crazy life or have done anything, like, particularly out of the ordinary or wild. I consider myself pretty chill, but I think some people would look at the things in my life and be like, "Are you okay?" So
I think that I would prefer that.
and so do I. I actually wish my life was a little bit more chaotic. Um, so, uh, maybe not chaotic, but more interesting sometimes, so
Well, I find your life very interesting, as do all of our terrible listeners who keep tuning in every week.
thanks, listeners. Thanks, Dan. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the, soft version of
Well, I have one more question about this.
yes, please.
Was the sex good? I mean, lights off, no oral, but was it good?
I mean, he came.
So no.
It was average.
It sounds like maybe he wasn't on the high side of a giving lover.
He was not, I will say he was not much of a giving lover. It was very, to me, and this is gonna sound terrible, to me, it felt like pretty transactional.
Right.
I mean, he had a good time. I was, I wasn't
You
bad.
you
Like, I
had
wasn't
nothing better to do.
yeah, I was not enjoying myself. I was just kind of like, "Well, I'm here. I guess my boobs are getting touched sometimes, like, it's okay."
Now, were you dating anyone else during this time ever? Did you go out on a few dates at all?
No. Oh, wait. No, I don't think I did, because I
Okay.
felt like, especially because I was still monogamous at this time, and I felt like,
Okay,
"Well,
okay.
I'm with this person, so I can't be with anybody else," was my
So
mentality.
did you guys ever talk, like, have a conversation like we are together? I am your secret girlfriend? Or was it just kinda it worked out that way?
Uh, we did have conversations about how we were together, especially when I was trying to end things, and there would be times of, like I said, I think I was his end game of trying to get married. I was, um, I think I was, like, safe for him, that I was a person that little did he know I am the last thing but safe in a um, uh I think for me, being with me was just like safety. Um, I was young. I was still, potentially fertile. Um, there was all of these things that he could um, invest in with me,
Right.
but I was not on the same page. Like
Oh,
I had other things. I had a future that I was looking
right.
forward to. And I think he was like, he was in his mid 40s and he was like, okay, time to settle. And I was like, settle what? Not, no. Um, and that was part of the reason why I had to get the hell out. So,
Well, I'm glad you got out. I'm glad you
me,
2 are no longer together.
yes. There was a hot minute where we were still like kind of just talking in like a friendly sort of way after I moved back to Michigan, but that quickly fell apart, mostly because I just stopped responding.
Right.
I will admit, like, I ghosted the guy hard. when I moved back to Michigan. I just
Did you tell him you were moving before you moved?
I did. He drove me to the airport.
Oh, nice. That was nice of him.
That was nice of him.
Thanks,
So,
buddy.
and I was crying on my way to the airport because I did not want to leave Oregon. It was kind of I was leaving under duress in some ways. And I was crying because I really didn't want to leave Portland. I didn't want to leave my friends. I didn't want to leave my life. And I really didn't want to come back to Michigan. I did not want to move back in with my parents. And I think he thought I was crying because I was leaving him.
Well, it's a nice thought for him.
I feel bad. I still feel bad. I think sometimes maybe I fucked him up a little bit, but
well, that's it means you're a decent person, that you actually have some empathy for what other people might be going through.
Yeah. Jury's still out on whether or not he took advantage of me because he was my boss.
Well, I mean, he should not be fucking his subordinates. He knows that. We all know that. You shouldn't do that at work. If he was really interested in you and he really wanted a relationship with you, he should have made the appropriate arrangements at work to not be your direct supervisor. That's how real bosses handle that, when they try to start banging their subordinates and then fall in love with them and want to marry them.
And there you have it.
There you have it. And on that note, should we do some questions or what?
Let's do some questions.
All right. Hey, Naseem. I just lost my virginity to my boyfriend, and it was both our first times. We had to stop at one point because I was hurting so bad. On a scale of 1 to 10, the pain I felt was probably an 8 out of 10. I know it's supposed to hurt, and I was expecting it to, but is it supposed to hurt that bad? Is that normal? I'm really confused and scared that when we do it again, it'll be like that and we'll have to stop. Do you have any tips or advice? Thanks, Naseem.
Whoever told you that sex is supposed to hurt, even the first time, was wrong. Sex is never supposed to hurt. Your first time may be a little uncomfortable, and sometimes there is pain. I'm not going to say that there's not. But it shouldn't be 8 out of 10 pain. No, something is wrong there. I'm going to ask you you can't answer me, but I just want to make sure that your boyfriend put it in the right spot, first of all. Was it going in your vagina? And also, was there any foreplay involved? If there's not enough lubrication, engorgement, wetness, sometimes it can, that the hole is too tight and too rigid, and it's not used to something going inside of it. So that's where the discomfort can come from. But it shouldn't be that painful. Should you be worried about it? No, not necessarily. The next time you have sex, I would just make sure that there's a lot more foreplay involved. Make sure you're really, really ready. And don't be afraid to use lube, honestly. Adding some lubrication there's no shame, no problem with that. Now
don't be afraid to use lube, but don't be afraid to insist your boyfriend go down on you for a while to get you ready too.
Also true. Now, that's not to say that, maybe you don't have, and this would be something to look down later down the line if, you continually have pain with sex, because there are medical conditions that do cause vaginal cramping and tightening with intercourse. But I wouldn't, and that's something to talk to a gynecologist about, but I wouldn't worry about that just yet. If you are just starting your sexual practice, I would advise more foreplay and making sure that your body is physically ready. But if it continues to happen over and over and over again, then I would consult a physician.
Now, I got a follow-up question there. So, once you start having sex as a vagina haver, how soon should you be hooking up with a gynecologist? When should you sign up for that?
So that's a great question. And I would say that if you are sexually active the very first time, there's nothing wrong with going right away. Um, it's actually not a bad idea to go before you have sex the first time. There used to be this common idea that, oh, as soon as you turn 18, you should go see the gynecologist. That's not necessary because not every 18-year-old is having sex, right? Um, I think it's a good idea to go before to talk to a gynecologist about expectations. What is your body going to do? Um, how to prepare for sexual activity. I think that going to a gynecologist prior to having sex for the first time is not a bad idea. Um, but I think that going, within like 3 months of having sex for the first time, especially if you had unprotected sex or you're not on any kind of birth control, doing it sooner rather than later would be ideal. Um, just so that way your doctor can get you on birth control or can look at other birth control options if the pill's not a good idea for you. Um, to talk about safety and STDs, STIs, to talk about, potential, uh, vaginal, excuse me, um, vaginal, um, I can't think of the word.
Well, vaginal's a big word, so you thought of that one.
Vaginal conditions. So things that could affect your sex life. Because a lot of these things, we as vagina havers don't typically
VH.
we don't typically know a lot about our bodies. There's so little medical knowledge and medical research done on, let's say, female bodies that it's a lot of it's a mystery. There's a lot of information that we don't have, that we don't know, because our sexual health has not been a priority for the vast majority of history. Our whole job was to have children, regardless of what that looked like, um, and what our bodies could and couldn't handle or do. So, our pleasure, not top of the list of things that were important to male medical professionals in the majority of our history.
From
So,
all the males out there, I'm speaking for all of us, gentlemen. Thank you for going through that. We're sorry to have put you through that, and we're here to support you and to do everything we can to support research into female and vagina having bodies. Moving forward, we've all just said it. I said it for all of us. We all agree, and we're ready to move forward with that.
well,
Sorry to cut you off. Continue, please.
thanks, Dan. I
You're welcome.
appreciate that, and I think a lot of us do. So because of that, we don't know a lot, and so um, that's why it's one of the reasons why masturbation is so important. It's one of the reasons why taking a little um, handheld mirror and looking at your vagina and looking at your vulva is so important. Know what's down there so you know how to handle it, so that way you can tell somebody else how to handle it. Um, all of that, super important. But go to a gynecologist as soon as you can. Ask the questions, get information. Knowledge is power, knowledge is agency. Um, and having a lot of knowledge can allow you to have a lot of pleasure.
And having a good connection with the right physician, a physician you trust, is such a great resource when things go wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
At
You have
least
to
you're
be
not
able to,
freaking out because you have nobody to talk to.
right. And having a physician or medical professional that you can trust is so key, because you want to be able to go into that office without any kind of fear of judgment. And I know that can be really difficult, especially when you're talking about intimacy, because there is always a fear that, oh, this person is going to judge me and my behavior, which unfortunately does happen. Um, So it's really important to find a practitioner who you can be open and honest with.
I have one more question. If you're looking for birth control as a vagina haver, can you get that from like your family practitioner, or do you have to go to a gynecologist for that?
You can get it from your family practitioner.
Okay.
Um, Gynecologists will just have more options available to you.
Right.
Um,
But if you're like
and
14, 15, 16, and you want to be on birth control, you can just talk about that with your family doctor while you're there for a checkup and mom's waiting outside, right?
yes, it depends on the state too.
Fair enough.
Um, some states do require permissions from a legal guardian before a certain age, and that age depends on the state. Fun fact, this is not sexual health related, but in the state of Michigan, I can't speak for Illinois, sorry. I
Pure
found this
Michigan.
out, but I'm pure Michigan. I'm from Michigan, so this is relevant. If you are 16 years old, you can seek out mental health services without the permission of a guardian. So I,
Yay,
f-
Michigan.
I found this out from someone who's a therapist in the state of Michigan, um, because a lot of kids are afraid to go to their parents or they can't talk to their parents about their mental health. Um, and I just want to put it out there since we have this platform, it's really important. If you're in the state of Michigan and you need mental health services and you're under the age of 18, you can seek mental health services without your parents' consent. The only thing is if you don't want your parents to know about it, that means you can't use their insurance, so you'd have to pay for it out of pocket, unfortunately. But there are services available for you if you're a teen who needs mental health help.
Use them. There are community resources available as well. Use them, find them. They're important. Man, and there's no problem going to a therapist. Your life will be better if you see a therapist. You
And your
need
life
somebody
may
to talk
depend on
to?
it.
Right. Get to one.
Yeah.
No
A
shame in
little
that.
a little tangential, but I felt it was important to add.
Big shout out to my therapist. I don't think he listens. But if you do, thanks for all your hard work.
Big shout out to my therapist. Oh, wait, I don't have one yet. Still working on it.
Well, you're over 16, you're in the state of Michigan, and you could certainly do that without your parents' consent now. So I
That's true.
suggest you try, Naseem.
Thanks.
Even though you're in Illinois right now. Sorry.
I am currently in Illinois. That's okay.
Eh. Hey, Naseem. I'm a 28-year-old male, and I have a girlfriend, and I've been with her for about a year. I've been having a hard time coming when we have sex, and I don't know why. I typically don't have this problem with past girls I've been with. Is there any way to fix this?
I mean, that's you're not coming at all, or it's just taking you a while. That's
Hard time coming.
it could be a couple of different things. It could be that you're just not. I don't know.
All right, I'll take this one.
You take this one.
Listen, buddy. First of all, I mean, clearly you perceive this as a problem, so we'll proceed that this is a problem. Is this a problem for your girlfriend? Is she enjoying this? Start there. Make sure that she's having a good time. And do you want to come? Do you want to finish? Is that the ultimate goal here? Or you just want to have a good, enjoyable time with your girlfriend and get her off? Don't forget that she's an important part of this equation. And if your girlfriend's happy, man, that's pretty good. You should be proud of that. So you don't have to come every time. If it's hard to come, well, try a bunch of different stuff. Try some different things. Have her lick your earlobes if you haven't done that. Who knows what you like? But if she's happy, she'll be down to try a bunch of weird stuff with you. And I say try the weird stuff. I'm talking earlobes. I'm talking armpits. I'm talking sucking on thumbs. Who knows? That spot behind your knee? Maybe you're into that, but try them all. How's that?
That was perfect, Dan. I completely checked out. Like my mind went straight up blank.
My mind went to the earlobe licking, and I just never came back.
Listen, the earlobe licking's not a bad game. It's not a bad move.
No.
Because you're right, and also like coming is not the end all be all. You don't have to have a great time.
Right, and can you come when
Um,
you jerk off in her presence? Then maybe you finish that way. As long as she's happy, man, she's gonna be down to let you try all sorts of shit.
right on. Absolutely. Um, as long as she's happy and as long as you're getting something out of it too, I wouldn't think of it as a problem.
No, man, sex doesn't have to be a dick goes in a vagina and then an orgasm comes from the dick. There's all kinds of different ways to do it. So figure it out. Make sure your girlfriend's happy.
Love it.
Hey, Naseem. Me and my girlfriend have been together for 4 years, and I always get off to her wearing panties and lingerie, but recently gave her a pair of my boxers, and I'm also into it. I wanted to know if it's normal for me to want to get off and have sex with my girlfriend while she's wearing my underwear.
Oh yeah, that's totally a common thing. There is something very sexy about a partner wearing your clothing. I think a lot of guys are into that because it's this idea that, oh, she's in my stuff. It's kind of like a weird, like, ownership territorial kind of
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
I think is
Oh, yeah, it
part of
is.
it. And it's really hot to a lot of guys to see their partner wearing like their shirts or their boxers. Um, that is completely normal.
Yeah, and usually they're like half naked or mostly naked. Like, you see the movies where the girl's wearing the dude's dress shirt the next morning making breakfast and that's all
Right
she's
on.
wearing. Like, it'd be weird if not weird, it'd be different if she dressed up in his whole suit and went and made breakfast. Probably a little less sexy most of the time for most people. Maybe that's your thing. Write us a letter. But I mean, if your girlfriend's just wearing your boxers, that's pretty hot. If she would put on your like pants and I don't know, your shitty old t-shirt and then like the boxers were just peeking out the top of the pants, probably less sexy.
I don't know. I could see that as being pretty hot too.
That's kind of like that TLC look from 1993.
Yeah, totally hot.
Fair enough. I stand corrected. Thank you, T-Boz.
I was all about Left Eye myself. Real sad when she passed.
Yeah, we miss you, Left Eye. Hey, Naseem. I work on ships and often have a bunk bed in my cabin. It's empty, so privacy isn't the issue. It's more the logistics of doing it in a bunk bed. So, any advice or suggestions on positions we could try?
Man, bunk bed, twin bed sex is the fucking worst. um, just don't do it on the bed, man. One
Yeah,
option,
have you ever been on a ship?
I have not a moving one.
I
Other than like a
imagine
ferry across like Lake Michigan, sure, but not like a ship.
I've never been on like a cruise ship or anything, but I imagine like if you're working on ships and there's a bunk bed in your cabin, those quarters are pretty tight. I can't imagine that there's like an awful lot of room. Like I feel like it's got to be like maybe about 2 feet bigger than an airplane bathroom.
Yeah, I'm not so sure because the only time I've actually been on like a ship, was there's like a haunted boat tour back home, like the USS Edson. It's like this decommissioned ship, and now they do like haunted boat tours every Halloween.
Oh, that sounds cool.
It's pretty cool, but like the barracks of this thing, it's like it's just like rows of
Yeah.
beds on top of each other in this narrow hallway.
I've been on the World War II submarine tour at the Science and Industry Museum, and there ain't no room to fuck in those bunks.
I mean, there's barely room for me to squeeze my fat ass into one of those beds. So if that's what we're talking about, if you want to have sex, wait till Fleet Week and go to a hotel. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, well, however you could do it, man.
Don't do it on the boat because it's just going to be a bad time for everybody.
Okay.
Um,
Do it on the boat, but it's going to be tight.
it's going to be
However you can rub, you rub.
tough. But if you're talking like, I mean, I don't know. If you're talking like a bunk bed that has some amount of space, the only thing I can think of, honestly, is like have have your partner like leaning up against the bed with like her head down, and then you fucking them from behind. Like that's the only thing I can think of where you're standing on the edge of the bed to make that kind of space work for you, because I can't imagine there's enough room on a ship to get any kind of action. Just wait till you're on shore.
Yeah, wait till you're on shore.
If there's any listeners who have maritime funny business experience, let us
Oh
know.
man, Maritime Funny Business would also be an awesome name for this episode.
So
No, that we're gonna save that for when you get your letters in. So listeners who have worked in commercial shipping and have had sex whilst out to sea, you're who we need to hear from.
absolutely. I might even know somebody. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, get them on the pod. Hey Naseem, some guy told me they want to lick my navel. Is that normal?
What's normal?
Right.
Like, sure. I mean, if he's into it, if you're into it, do it. If you're not into it, don't.
Try it.
End of story.
Maybe you're into having your navel licked. You had no idea. Where's that other guy with the earlobes we were talking to? Maybe call him up. Hey Naseem, I get too wet during sex. At this point, this is a problem for me because I get to the point where I don't feel anything at all and it's not pleasurable. This issue bothers me right now and also my boyfriend, as he also doesn't feel any pleasure. I encountered this issue with different partners, and at first I thought maybe their size wasn't right, but I excluded that option, and this is not the problem. What can I do to not get this wet and to feel something at all?
I would talk to your gynecologist because it sounds like there's a physiological thing happening. Um, you may have a um, excess of hormone, um, and that can cause an increase of moisture. So, I would talk to a gynecologist who has a little bit more or a lot more knowledge than I do on the topic. It may mean that you get put on some medication. It may mean that you have some pelvic floor exercises. Um, you could have, for all we know, you could have some sort of infection, like vaginosis or something like that, bacterial vaginosis, which can cause um, certain levels of discharge. I mean, we don't even know what the wetness is necessarily. Um, is it just vaginal? Is it coming from your bladder? Like, do you know where it's coming from? Is it just during sex, or are you always kind of wet down there? Yeah, definitely talk to a gynecologist.
And also, sex doesn't have to be just a penis in a vagina and then somebody comes. Play around some other ways if you're not getting the kind of pleasure that you want with what you're doing.
Also true.
Lick some earlobes.
Or navels.
Hell yeah! Hey Naseem, I'm currently in a relationship and want to give my boyfriend head. I know that the more I do it, I'll improve, but I don't want it to be terrible the first time. Any tips or tricks?
Ask him what he likes.
Yeah.
Every guy likes something different. I mean, there's some basic stuff that I think every guy finds more or less pleasurable. But if you want to be really good for that person, you're going to need to have to know some specific details about what they like. Do they like more? Do they like more licking? Or do they like more sucking? Do they like a little bit of teeth? Some guys like some teeth. Do they like their balls played with? Don't they like their balls played with? Find out some of those things, and that can give you a better idea. Generally speaking, there are more nerve endings at the tip or near the head of the penis than there are near the base. So, especially if you're not used to giving head, don't try deep throating because, like, it's it's not as pleasurable
It's a
as
little varsity. You don't want to do that the first try.
yeah. It's also like not as pleasurable as pornography would make it seem. Like, spend more time on the tip of the head. I think most guys appreciate that. Um, But, like, yeah, deep throating is like that's like a more of a master level move. Um, but yeah, ask the questions. Ask things like, "Hey, what do you think you'd like?" "Can I play with your balls?" And it's gonna be different for every guy.
Listen, Naseem, that's a great answer. But here's what you do. You tell your boyfriend, hey, you're super hot and I want to put your dick in my mouth. Go hop in the shower, come on back, and then I'm going to try it. And you're going to tell me if you like what I'm doing or if I should do anything different. He's going to get super excited. You're going to make sure it's clean. Like, you don't know what he's been doing the last 3 days.
He could be playing like 3 rounds of basketball, and then
Right, boys can get gross.
boys are gross sometimes. So
often. My wife will attest to that.
So, yeah.
No, like make sure he's clean. Tell him to go get clean because shit's going to get rad. And then it's fine to say it's my first time. Let's oh my God, that would be awesome. That would be the most fun first time ever. If someone was like, I'm about to do this. Go get your dirty ass in the shower.
Yeah. And I think there's something very, I mean, like you're alluding to, Dan, there's something very exciting for a guy to know that like, oh, she's going to do this for me. And it's going to be her first time. Like there's something very like, there's something very exciting about that prospect.
Or like, yeah, tell him before the date. Tell him like when he comes and picks you up and you guys are going to a party or going to the movie, be like, we're coming back.
And I'm going to suck your dick.
Yeah. He's got like 3, 4, 5 hours to be stoked about that.
I have pulled that move myself.
Solid.
And let me tell you, it's always a good time. Like, you know, especially if you're in a really innocuous area, like a very vanilla, like let's say you're like at a party or something, or you're out to dinner with your parents or something. You say something like in his ear, like where no one can hear you, just be like, I'm going to suck your dick later. And it's like amazing. Well, your dick's going to be in my mouth later. Get ready. Like something like that.
Yeah.
It's perfect. They love that.
I don't think we would finish any stronger than that.
I mean, not yet.
Naseem wants all her terrible listeners to know that although she is a medical professional, she is not your medical professional. This podcast is not medical advice. If you want medical advice, please seek out your very own healthcare provider. Terrible Sex with Naseem is part of the Terrible Podcast Network.